The Hedges arrived in Whilomville on a Saturday, and the following Monday Johnny wended his way to school with a note to the principal and his Jersey City schoolbooks. He knew perfectly well that he would be told to buy new and different books, but in those days mothers always had an idea that old books would do, and they invariably sent boys off to a new school with books which would not meet the selected and unchangeable views of the new administration. The old books never would do. Then the boys brought them home to annoyed mothers and asked for 90 cents or 60 cents or 85 cents or some number of cents for any and for another outfit. In the garret of every house holding a large family there was a collection of F.Ed. school books, with Mother rebellious because James could not inherit his books from Paul, who should properly be Peter's heir, while Peter should be a beneficiary under Henry's will. But the matter of the books was not the measure of Johnny Hedges' unhappiness. This whole business of changing schools was a complete torture. Alone he had to go among a new people, a new tribe, and he apprehended his serious time. There were only two fates for him. One meant victory, one meant a kind of serfdom, in which he would subscribe to every word of some superior boy, and support his every word. It was not anything like an English system of fagging, because boys invariably drifted into the figurative service of other boys whom they devotedly admired, and if they were obliged to subscribe to everything, it is true that they would have done so freely in any case. One means to suggest that Johnny Hedge had to find his place. Willie Dalzell was a type of little chieftain, and Willie was a master, but he was not a bully in a special physical sense. He did not drag little boys by the ear until they cried, nor make them tearfully fetch and carry for him. They fetched and carried, but it was because of their worship of his prowess and genius. And so, all through the strata of boy life were chieftains and sub-chieftains and assistant sub-chieftains. There was no question for little Hedge being towed about by the nose. It was, as one has said, that he had to find his place in a new school, and this in itself was a problem which awed his boyish heart. He was a stranger, cast away upon the moon. None knew him, understood him, felt for him. He would be surrounded for this initiative times by a horde of jackal creatures who might turn out in the end to be little boys like himself. But this last point, his philosophy could not understand it in its fullness. He came to a white meeting house of some sort, in the squat tower of which a great bell was clanging impressively. He passed through an iron gate into a playground worn bare as a bed of a mountain brook by the endless runnings and scufflings of little children. There was still a half-hour before the final clangor of the squat tower, but the playground held a number of frolicsome imps. A loitering boy espied Johnny Hedge, and he howled, "Oh, here's a new fella. He advanced upon the strange arrival. "What's your name?" he demanded belligerently, like a particularly offensive custom-house officer. "Johnny Hedge," responded the newcomer shyly. This name struck the other boys as being very comic. All new names strike boys as being comic. He laughed noisily. "Oh, fellas, he says his name is Johnny Hedge. Ha, ha, ha." The new boys felt that his name was the most disgraceful thing which had ever been attached to a human being. "Johnny Hedge! Oh, ha, ha! What room you in?" said the other lad. "I don't know," said Johnny. In the meantime, a small flock of interested vultures had gathered around him. The main thing was his absolute strangeness. He even would have welcomed the sight of his tormentors of Saturday. He had seen them before, at least. These creatures were only so many incomprehensible problems. He diffidently began to make his way toward the main door of the school, and the other boys followed him. They demanded information. "Are you going through subtraction yet? We studied geography. Did you ever? You live here now? You going to school here now?" Too many questions he made answer as well as the clamour would permit, and at length he reached the main door and went quaking unto his new kings, as befitted them. The rabble stopped at the door. A teacher strolling along a corridor found a small boy holding in his hand a note. The boy palpably did not know what to do with the note, but the teacher knew and took it. Thereafter this little boy was in a harness. A splendid lady in gorgeous robes gave him a seat at a double desk, at the end of which sat a hoodlum with grimy fingernails, who eyed the inauguration with an extreme and personal curiosity. The other desks were gradually occupied by children, who first were told of the new boy, and then turned upon him a speculative and somewhat derisive eye. The school opened, the little classes went forward to a position in front of the teacher's platform and tried to explain that they knew something. The new boy was not requisitioned a great deal. He was allowed to lie dormant until he became used to the scenes and until the teacher found approximately his mental position. In the meantime, he suffered a shower of stares and whispers and giggles as if he were a man-ape. Whereas he was precisely like the other children. From time to time he made funny and pathetic little noises, or overtures to other boys, but these overtures could not yet be received. He was not known, he was a foreigner, the village school was like a nation, it was tight, its inalienability or friendship must be won in certain ways. At recess he hovered in the schoolroom around the weak lights of society and around the teacher, in the hope that somebody might be good to him, but none considered him save as some sort of a specimen. The teacher, of course, had a secondary interest in the fact that he was an additional one to a class of 63. At 12 o'clock, when the ordered files of boys and girls marched towards the door, he exhibited to no eye the tremblings of a coward in a charge. He exaggerated the lawlessness of the playground and the street, but the reality was hard enough. A shout greeted him. "Oh, here's the new fella, here's the new fella." Small and utterly obscure boys teased him. He had a hard time of it to get to the gate. There never was any actual hurt, but everything was competent to a smite the lad with shame. It was a curious, groundless shame, but nevertheless was shame. He was a newcomer, and he definitely felt the disgrace of the fact. In the street he was seen and recognized by some lads who had formed part of the group of Saturday. They shouted, "Ah, Jimmy, Jimmy, here he is, a new fella."